Today, our understanding of justice, our education systems, scientific thinking, logic, politics, and even the way we debate reality can all be traced back to the questions asked by one man who lived more than 2,400 years ago. He never commanded great armies. He never built an empire. He never won glorious wars. He never constructed magnificent palaces that carried his name through history. Yet he became one of the most influential figures in human civilization. Because some people change the world not with swords, but with ideas. Plato was one of those people. The world into which Plato was born was experiencing one of the greatest intellectual transformations in human history. The city-states of ancient Greece were not merely centers of trade and politics. They were also places where people began questioning nature, society, and themselves for the very first time. For centuries, people had explained everything that happened in the natural world through the will of the gods. But a new era was beginning. Humanity was no longer satisfied with asking what happened. People had begun asking why it happened. It was in the middle of this transformation that the young Plato was born into a noble family in Athens. At first, he was raised like any other aristocrat. His family expected him to become a successful statesman. He received the finest education, wrote poetry, practiced athletics, and grew up among the elite of Athenian society. But destiny had prepared a very different path for him. One day, an elderly man named Socrates entered his life. Socrates taught unlike anyone else. He did not fill people's minds with answers. Instead, he filled them with questions. What is justice? What is courage? What is wisdom? Do people truly know the things they believe they know? These questions transformed Plato's entire understanding of the world. For the first time, he realized that true knowledge does not come from memorization, but from questioning. Perhaps humanity's greatest leap forward was not discovering new answers, but learning to ask the right questions. Yet this extraordinary journey began with tragedy. The people of Athens accused Socrates of corrupting the youth and challenging traditional beliefs. He was sentenced to death and accepted his fate by drinking poisoned hemlock. For Plato, this was far more than the loss of his beloved teacher. It became a powerful lesson about the failures of society and government. If even the wisest man could be condemned by the judgment of the majority, then what was justice? How should people make good decisions? What makes a truly good government? These questions would shape the rest of Plato's life. After the death of Socrates, Plato spent many years traveling throughout the ancient world. He studied the civilizations of Egypt. He met mathematicians in southern Italy. He observed rulers in Sicily. Every journey expanded his understanding, but his true goal was never simply to see new lands. He was searching for universal truth. He believed that knowledge could never belong to a single city or a single people. Truth had to belong to all humanity. Years later, he returned to Athens and founded one of the most important educational institutions in history, the Academy. Even today, the word academic traces its origins back to this remarkable school. Students did not simply attend lectures. They debated, questioned, investigated, and searched for evidence. Mathematics, astronomy, politics, logic, and philosophy developed side by side within its walls. The Academy remained active for nearly 900 years, becoming one of the longest-lasting centers of learning in history. The foundations of today's universities can still be seen in the institution Plato created. One of Plato's most influential ideas concerned the nature of reality itself. He believed that the world we perceive through our senses is constantly changing. People grow old, buildings collapse, trees die, and nations rise and fall. Yet concepts such as justice, goodness, beauty, and truth do not age or disappear. Reality, he argued, exists beyond the physical world. There is a deeper reality that can only be understood through reason. This idea profoundly influenced philosophy, religion, art, and science for centuries. Humanity gradually learned to trust not only what it could see, but also what it could understand. Perhaps Plato's greatest legacy is the allegory of the cave. He imagined people chained inside a dark cave, forced to spend their entire lives watching shadows projected onto a wall. To them, those shadows represented reality itself. Then one person broke free, stepped outside, and saw the sun, nature, and the real world for the first time. When he returned to tell the others what he had discovered, no one believed him. They preferred the familiar shadows over the uncomfortable truth. More than 2,400 years later, this story remains as relevant as ever. In an age of misinformation, propaganda, prejudice, algorithms, and endless streams of digital content, humanity still struggles with the same question. Is what we see truly reality? Plato did not limit his thinking to individuals. He also questioned how societies should be governed. He believed that a just society could only exist when wisdom guided power. A government without knowledge, he argued, could never produce lasting justice. His concept of the philosopher king has been debated, defended, and criticized for centuries. More importantly, it forced generations of people to think deeply about the nature of leadership, justice, and political responsibility. Even today, many of our debates about democracy, law, and government continue to revolve around questions that Plato first asked. Among the young students who entered the academy was a brilliant thinker named Aristotle. He studied under Plato for many years before founding his own school. One of Aristotle's students would later become Alexander the Great. Through this remarkable chain of teachers and students, Plato's ideas spread far beyond Athens. Sometimes the influence of a teacher reaches much farther than the conquests of any empire. After Plato's death, his writings continued to travel across civilizations. They were studied throughout the Roman world. Centuries later, scholars of the Islamic Golden Age translated his works into Arabic and explored his ideas in cities such as Baghdad, Damascus, and Córdoba. These ideas eventually returned to Europe, where they became part of the intellectual foundation of the Renaissance. Throughout history, ideas have crossed borders far more easily than armies. Plato remains one of history's greatest examples of that truth. Ironically, very few philosophers today accept every one of Plato's ideas exactly as he presented them. Scientific discoveries challenged some of his conclusions. Other ideas were revised, while some were abandoned altogether. Yet none of this diminished his importance. Plato's greatest gift to humanity was never a collection of final answers. It was a method of thinking. Science itself continues that tradition. Every generation questions what came before, improves existing knowledge, and searches for deeper truths. In many ways, the spirit of modern science still carries Plato's influence. Today we live in the age of artificial intelligence. Computers can analyze vast amounts of information and discover patterns beyond human ability. People debate whether machines may one day truly think. Yet despite all our technological progress, the most fundamental questions remain unchanged. What is knowledge? What is consciousness? What is reality? What is justice? What does it mean to be human? These are the very same questions Plato explored more than 2,400 years ago. Technology has changed. Civilization has changed. Maps of the world have changed. But humanity's search for truth has never changed. In the end, Plato was remembered neither as a king nor as a military commander. His greatest achievement was neither a palace nor a treasure. His true legacy was human thought itself. Some people build cities. Some build nations. Others build the ideas upon which civilizations are founded. Today, whenever a teacher encourages students to question instead of memorize, whenever a scientist searches for evidence, whenever a judge reflects on justice, or whenever someone pauses before accepting what they see and asks, is this really true? Plato's legacy lives on. Because some people do not simply change their own era. They change the way every future generation thinks. Plato was one of those rare individuals. He did not teach humanity what to think. He taught humanity how to think. And that is why, after more than 2 millennia, his voice continues to echo through classrooms, universities, courts, laboratories, and minds across the world.
Before the kings, before